Can we?
This is Kerwin and Keith upon the Sun Galaxy. Welcome to Keith.
Hi.
Well, you know what? So if you're watching us on YouTube, we have a new studio, a new set. All right. We didn't acknowledge it before. This is not the first time we've been on this set, but we should say that the reason for this set is because of Tanya, who is not only our producer of the podcast, but she's also our set designer. So just want to, just acknowledge Tanya for her hard work and give her a round of applause. And thank you so much for this set.
Thanks,
This
Mom.
is wonderful. So this is it. And, we're going to be building upon this set, weeks to come. So thank you. I hope you like it. If you have any comments, just let us know. But anyway, so we are here to talk about, thank you. We're here to talk about Captain America, Brave New World. Now,
Yes.
Keith, this movie came out February 14th, right? Very unusual time for a movie like this to come out on Valentine's Day. But we did see it, but we didn't get a chance to review it until now, right? The movie dropped a week ago on Disney Plus, and we watched it again, and now we're ready to discuss.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Here we go then. All right. So Captain America, Brave New World is directed by Julius Ona, story by Rob Edwards, Malcolm Spellman, Dallin Mooson, screenplay by Rob Edwards, Malcolm Spellman, Dallin Mooson, Julius Ona, and Peter Glantz. All right. So there are some topics that we want to discuss, but before we do that, Keith, just give me an overall opinion of the film. What do you think?
I think it was all right. It's like a 7 out of 10. Borrowed a lot of plot points from Captain America, the Winter Soldier, which I picked up on the second watch, but not the first one. Yeah, it was an okay movie.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's not a bad movie. It's not a good movie. It was just somewhere in between. All right. And so we're going to go do a deep dive and break it down. And so we have it broken down into four questions, that we want to ask. So the first question is, why did we need this movie? Okay. We're going to
I asked myself the same question.
Yeah, well, we'll discuss that. Second question, what did the film get right? All right. What did we like about the film? What did it get right? Third question, how did the film miss the mark? All right. We'll talk about that. And the last question is, how does the movie prepare us for Secret Wars? And that's what it's all about, right? That's the end game, so to speak. We call this segment, when we were talking about Marvel, the Marvel films at least, On the Road to Avengers Secret War, because that's what we're leading up to. So we're expecting that every single movie between now and Secret Wars, which will drop in 2027, at the end of 2027, how is this movie in particular going to prepare us for that movie? All right. Okay. So let's get into it. Let's start with, why did we need this movie? Okay. Well, we wanted to the movie had to introduce Sam Wilson as Captain America. Now, granted, if you've already seen The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you've already witnessed Sam Wilson as Captain America. But I guess what the producers are doing, the filmmakers are doing, is they don't want to just take any chances to assume that you saw the Disney Plus series. So they're reintroducing. If you have not seen Falcon and Winter Soldier, they're reintroducing Sam Wilson as Captain America, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And
don't know why you wouldn't have heard about it by now, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, sometimes people may not get around to watching certain Disney Plus series. There's been quite a few of them. This one may not, might have gotten overlooked. But again, if you've seen it, great. This to you is just a reintroduction. But if you're seeing it for the first time, here we are, Sam Wilson's Captain America. Now,
surprise.
Yeah, right. And now the thing is, in Falcon and Winter Soldier, I'm not going to talk too much about the series because this is about the movie, that Sam spent time trying to understand trying to understand why Steve Rogers chose him to take the shield, right? Sam felt Bucky might have been the better person to be Captain America. So he was not ready to take on that role. All right.
It should have been Bucky.
Oh, really? It should have been Bucky? Really? Now this is a hot take. I didn't know you were going to say this. Why should it have been Bucky?
Well, for one thing, did you know that Bucky was Captain America in the comics before Sam?
No, I did not know that.
Yes.
Before Sam?
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting.
Secondly,
yeah,
Steve and Bucky have been fighting alongside each other for like 100 years.
True, yeah.
They've known each other for over almost a century.
Mm-hmm.
Thirdly, Sam didn't even want the shield in the first place. He put it in a museum, and then the government kind of stole it and gave it to John Walker. Fourthly, It's Bucky. I mean, I know some of the defenses people have said is like, oh, well, he was a Winter Soldier. People didn't forget. But they were forgiving enough to let him become a congressman, which I think if they're willing to let Bucky Barnes be a congressman, they would have accepted him as Captain America.
I get you. Okay. Well, so why do you think Steve chose Sam over Bucky? You don't know.
Oh, no.
All right. Well, okay. I'm not going to say that you're wrong. I mean, that's your opinion.
Now that I think about it, Steve had known Sam for less than 1/10 of the time he knew Bucky.
Yes. Right. Okay. Again, I'm not going to say your take is wrong. That's your take. But what I was going to say is I think Sam makes a great Captain America. But let's get into it. So introduce Sam Wilson and then Anthony Mackie. I think he is just wonderful in the role of Sam, obviously, and Captain America.
Yeah.
So again, we needed that introduction. Secondly, Harrison Ford. All right. This is an introduction to Harrison Ford playing the role as Thaddeus Ross because William Hurt, the late William Hurt, unfortunately, you know, is no longer with us. So now Harrison Ford is taking over the role as Ross.
You know what they say, lose the mustache or lose the election.
That's right. That's exactly what he says. So that's the difference between the two Rosses. Yeah. Okay. Again, Joaquin Torres was in the Falcon and Winter Soldier, but again, just like Captain America, we're introducing Danny Ramirez playing Joaquin Torres.
I didn't even remember he was in that show.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk a little bit more about Joaquin. Yeah, so
he's a bit corny.
Yeah, right. Okay. He didn't make a big splash, not in the series.
Well, he actually did make a big splash.
Oh, that's not nice. Okay, you twisted my words. You're getting ahead of me, but okay.
I'm sorry.
He made a big splash. Okay, if you've seen the movie, you know what we're talking about. By the way, it is a spoiler review.
Yes, spoilers.
I keep forgetting to say that. Well, we apologize if you were not aware, but you'll see it in the description on YouTube anyway. So Danny Ramirez is playing Joaquin Torres, and I think what he was there to do is to provide comic relief in the movie, but I thought it didn't work.
Yeah, they kind of leaned a little too heavy on the comic.
Yeah,
I thought some of it was funny, but the majority of it was just kind of to fill the air.
Yeah. I think what they're trying to do was to fabricate this relationship between Sam and Joaquin, and it's not clicking for me. You know what I mean? Like I don't see chemistry between the two actors, Danny and Anthony. But again, Joaquin was the comic relief, and I thought his jokes fell flat. But we'll talk more about Joaquin. Okay. Another introduction is the Adamantium.
You know what? Instead of playing Mr. Blue, the leader should have just blasted the X-Men theme. Because Adamantium, guys.
Now listen, we're going to talk about this Mr. Blue song, okay? But
Wolverine.
Adamantium. Yes. So talk about Adamantium, why this is important.
So, does anybody remember that Eternals movie for 2021? Me neither. So I'll remind you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the Eternals movie, there were these Eternals. They're really old people, but they're also kind of sentient robots. I don't really know what happened there, but long story short, the Celestials are these galactic entities, and the way that they have children is they plant seeds in planets, and then the planets kind of nurture the child, and then the child emerges from the planet and destroys it in the process. So, the Eternals stop this Celestial named Tiamat from emerging from Earth, and kind of froze my guy in the middle of the ocean. So there's just a giant head and hand sticking out of the Atlantic, and nobody's mentioned it up until now. It's been 4 years. So apparently that celestial body was made of adamantium. So they've started harvesting that.
Exactly. Okay, so there you go. So the adamantium, according to Ross, is more indestructible than vibranium.
Yes, don't know how they know that because they got the sample in movie 5 minutes before Ross started speaking. So I don't know how they would have gotten their hands on vibranium, let alone had time to sample it and test it against adamantium. But
yeah,
movie.
Right. And so apparently adamantium, that is what drives the story. You have this mineral, or what would you call it?
A resource.
A resource that's very, very valuable to not just the United States, but to Japan as well. And there's
Yeah.
this, theft apparently where Japan is accusing the United States of stealing their vibranium. Although I don't even know why Japan thinks the vibranium belongs to them, like their vibranium, unless I
Adamantium.
missed something.
Adamantium.
I'm sorry. Yes, adamantium.
Yeah, yeah, no
There we
problem.
go. So, all right. So again, so Japan is accusing the U.S. of stealing their
Yeah.
adamantium.
So I think what happened was the leader. We'll talk about the leader in a second.
Yeah.
But what he did was he stole that from Japan and then faked intel to make it look like the U.S. was the ones who took it. So it was Japan's sample first, and then President of Japan started making accusations at Ross about them stealing it because by all means they thought they were right. They weren't, but
Yeah. So was it the two countries received their own pieces of adamantium? Is that how it works?
I
Because how did Japan get the adamantium?
I don't really know.
Right. That's not something.
I'm
Really
gonna have to Google that.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, well, yeah, if you want to, but my point is, I don't know if the movie explained that very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think of the movie, we'll talk about this more in a second, but it suffers from a lot of exposition,
Yeah.
but not where it's needed.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, I forgot to mention that Thaddeus Ross is now president-elect. Right. So he is the president of the United States. We'll talk more about that too.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Isaiah Bradley. So again, another character from the series Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Mhm.
If you did not see it, of course, this is a new character to you, but
Yeah.
it's not to us.
So-
This is played by Carl Lumbly, which,
Yeah.
by the way, in the series, he gave a great performance, Carl Lumbly, and he was overlooked for an Emmy nomination.
Really?
Yeah. Yes.
Dude, that's a steal.
Yeah. He was very, very good. So really, he's
Yeah.
playing the same character. Well, yes, he's playing the same character, but basically his story is that he is he was given the super soldier serum
So
as an experiment.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then they kind of experimented and tortured him for 30 years. Locked him in the US basement. And essentially he did get freed at some point, but 30 years of trauma can't be undone. And Sam and Joaquin convince him to go to this White House thing where Ross is giving the speech, and Isaiah gets mind controlled by the leader. He shoots at the president, and he goes back to jail, unfortunately.
Right. That's what happens.
And they mess up his designer suit.
Yeah. And then Sam is the one who has to clear his name.
Yeah.
Okay. And there are actually two new characters not appearing in the series, but in this movie. So we have Ruth Bat-Seraph and Leila Taylor. Okay, so let's talk about these two characters. Now Ruth Bat-Seraph is actually, these two characters are actually from the comics.
That's
right?
correct.
So Ruth is a mutant, right?
In the comics.
Yeah, in the comics, she is from Israel. She was a part of the Mossad, and she is also a former Black Widow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, in our universe, like the MCU, she is a former Black Widow, and Ross is head of security.
Yes. And then she was in the comics working on the name of Sabra. That's her name.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, Leila Taylor, if we don't know who that is, Leila Taylor is the agent. I guess she's a Secret Service agent. She is the one, you can't miss her because she's the one, she's got a lot of screen time and she has some dialogue. So I was on the impression that maybe she is somebody, like, okay, well, like why this person of all the other actors?
She's actually a fairly minor character in the comics. Like, she's a reporter for the Daily Bugle, or like a journalist.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that part. I had her as, she did have in the comics a relationship with Sam Wilson.
Yeah.
Okay.
I knew that part.
Okay. And she also worked for the Daily Bugle. Interesting. Okay. All right. So this is played by actor Kosa Rockmora. Okay. Kosa Rockmore. Sorry, let me get that name right. Kosa Rockmore. And it wasn't, you could tell, well, what I could tell that there was some type of chemistry between Leila and Sam.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of her. So there was this one scene where, she says to Sam, don't be that person. And then Sam says, well, who is that? And I don't recall her answer.
And he's like, I guess I am that guy.
Right, exactly. He said, I'm that guy because he wanted to go and try to clear Isaiah Bradley's name because Isaiah apparently took a shot. He had an assassination attempt on the president.
Yeah.
that went horribly wrong. Ross is okay. It was an attempt, but he was arrested just for that.
Yeah. That was the leader. I'm gonna poke some holes in his plan later.
Yeah. All right. So then let's talk about what did the film get right. What were the good things about the film? Um, I've written some things down. If there's anything else you want to talk about, let me know. So um, it is nice to see that Ross. Now remember from this uh, Captain America: Civil War, Thaddeus Ross was the one who created the Sokovia Accords.
That's correct. Yeah.
And basically what the Accords are is that these superheroes should be working for the government. All right. And what that means is that they're registered with the government as a superhero, and they also had to reveal their identity to the government in order. If you're going to go out there and try to fight crime, you're going to be working for the government. You're going to do what the government tells you to do, and you have to give up your identity. Right. And we know that was a big deal between Steve and Tony Stark.
Yeah.
You know, Tony was okay with the Accords, and he was all right with working with the government.
Yeah, which is easy for him to say because he released his identity like day one.
But that's a good point. That's true. Right. So it doesn't bother him. Yeah. You know, people know who he is, but Steve was not having it.
It's kind of funny how in the Civil War movie they made Tony Stark right when in the comics he was like an absolute madman. He almost got Peter Parker killed, and then is the reason his aunt died. And while poor man was in the hospital with his dying aunt, Tony couldn't even be bothered to go see him.
Yeah, interesting. Now Ross in this movie, now that he's president of the United States, actually wants Sam to reform the Avengers
for about 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, yeah, right, until the assassination attempt.
So I don't really know why he blames Sam for the assassination attempt, because clearly there was something going on there. I know Ross wasn't aware of it until like a few scenes later within the plot, but should have at least had the benefit of the doubt, because I doubt Captain America would willingly be friends with somebody if he thought they would be willing to assassinate the president. Absolutely. But other than that, I did enjoy Harrison Ford's performance as Ross.
Yes.
But I enjoy Harrison Ford in everything. So.
Yes, that's a good point. Let's say that Harrison Ford, you know, it's we had some trouble with the script, which we'll talk about when we discuss what, you know, why the film fell short for us.
Wow, what a guy.
Yeah, but he gave his all to what he had. All right. And, you know, we're going to talk more about Thaddeus Ross. You know, he's very important in the film. And one other thing about Ross, you know, I just mentioned that he wanted Sam to be the one to bring the Avengers back together. And Sam is, well, that's interesting. Well, why? And then Ross says that the Avengers represents that Ross as president represents all of America, and that he praises the Avengers for bringing back half the world population.
Yes.
In other words, the blip that took place. So he felt that he needed to thank the Avengers by bringing them back together.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, it kind of makes sense in universe why they call it the blip and not the snap, because nobody on Earth would have the context that the result of people disappearing was from a snap.
So why is the word blip any better?
Because people just blipped out of existence.
I see. Okay.
I guess because the dusting sounds kind of weird.
I didn't mind the term slap. I didn't mind the term snap. You know, snap to me made sense to me because that's what happened. That's exactly what Thanos did. So I don't know why that was not used. The snap meaning that these people, you know, half of the population, the world population, just dusted.
Yeah, well, we call it the snap because we saw that, but the people on Earth and all the other planets, they had no idea that Thanos was behind this, let alone that the method of their destruction was snapping.
Got it.
So that wouldn't be the thing that comes to mind, and they'd probably call it something else, i.e. the blip. So.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I just thought of that.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay.
Speaking of which, remember Carly Morgenthau?
Carly Morgenthau.
Yeah. You know, Aaron Kellyman?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. And
Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yes.
Yeah. You have to stop calling them terrorists.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Well, we don't want to talk too much about Falcon and Winter
Soldier. Yeah. John Walker was right. Okay. Let's get back to
my goodness.
Let's get back to Brave New World.
All right, Brave New World. Okay. So, as you said earlier, there was something in this movie where we've seen it before. Bradley was in prison for 30 years and he was experimenting with this super soldier serum. And then what happens is whenever he hears this song called Mr. Blue, it drives him insane and he stands up and he just terrorizes people.
Actually.
And what he was set to do was to kill the president, which he failed to do. But go ahead.
I think what really happened, like there was this when Ruth and Sam were examining the footage, they both found out that basically his phone was flashing in his face, and that was like Morse code that triggered him. I think the Mr. Blue song was just like a cover up. I'll talk about that in a second, but it seems really weird to leave a calling card, essentially. It's like, you remember in Home Alone when Marv would, like, run all the sinks in the
Right.
houses
Yeah.
so
He
that
left a
everyone
trail.
knew it was the
Yeah,
same person?
exactly.
It doesn't make sense because you're tying all the crimes together,
Yeah.
which makes it that much easier to trace them back to one person if you know that they're all related. So I don't see why the song was there.
Yeah.
Because it seems inconsistent how he mind controls people. Because when Sam, Ruth, and Joaquin were exiting the facility and they got taken by the feds, the song Mr. Blue played and none of them had the phone flash. But when they were at the White House, the phone flash happened and that triggered them. So,
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused because I actually thought you're right. There was a scene when Bradley was in the White House. He did have the cell phone and there was a flashing light, and I forgot about that part. But I actually thought it was a song that actually triggered the mind control. But again, that's that's where the story falls for us. I
that's
guess
where
that's
the
what I'm saying.
exposition should happen.
Yeah, right.
Like, if they treated this like I treat my toast and evenly spread the jam, or in this case exposition, across the surface area of the toast, we would get a very well balanced bite every single time.
I get your point. Yeah.
Or in other words, cohesive story.
Yes, right. Now, I want to talk about this song, Mr. Blue. Okay. This is something that irked me a little bit.
What, that it's an
and-
elderly song?
well, yes, let me get to that. And it's to me, it's not something that made the movie fall short. We'll still talk about that, but it's just something that irked me. Now, Mr. Blue is a real song. I don't know if you knew that. It was recorded in the 1950s, so it came out in 1959. That's over 60 years ago.
This song is like way older than you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, it is. Way older than me.
Yeah.
59, right? By a doo-wop group called the Fleetwoods. Has anybody ever heard of the Fleetwoods? I don't think so.
I've heard of Fleetwood Mac, but not Bill
Exactly,
Fleetwoods.
right. There you go. All right. So here's the thing. This song is so obscure, but the people in the movie make it seem like, oh yeah, Mr. Blue. I know where Mr. Blue is. You know, because there's never been a time in this movie where someone heard the song and said, well, what is that song? And then maybe Sam would come up to them and say, oh, well, that's Mr. Blue by the Fleetwoods. And then that person would respond, oh, I never even heard that song.
Or it would be really funny if Bucky was the one to mention it, because, he's old and he would have been around.
Exactly.
Like, you remember when Bucky showed up in the hospital?
Right.
Maybe Sam could have asked him, like, hey, I've been hearing this song. And then he hums the tune, and Bucky's like, yeah, I know that one. I used to hear it back when I was blowing up cars.
Yeah, right, because he was around.
Yeah, exactly. He would have been active in the 50s.
Exactly, right. So it's a very little thing, but details can make or break a story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if it seems very false to me that no one would, that not one person would not know this song.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't even heard of most contemporary songs.
It was just very strange. It seemed fake to me. All right, but I don't want to go into too much of this song.
The other song I thought of was Mr. Blue Sky. I think that's the one by Electric Light Orchestra from the 80s. But the problem is, it's kind of a Star-Lord song. I think people know that one more than they know Mr. Blue.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they chose a Beatles song, like Yesterday, where, 50 years, 60 years later, people are still singing this song, recording this song, or
and it's
huh?
Yeah, you're sorry.
Yeah, They Don't See Us or whatever, like.
Never heard of that one. But yeah, like,
they're not like us.
Yeah, that.
They're not like
Kendrick
us.
Lamar.
It could have been a Kendrick Lamar song that people heard. Like, oh, okay, well, Kendrick Lamar, big deal. But Mr.
Wait,
Blue?
wouldn't that be funny if they just start crip walking on their way to assassinate the president?
All right.
In the movie, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Just felt I had to make that clear.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then my favorite part. I don't know what your favorite part is. I enjoyed. There are two parts. The U.S. and Japan on the brink of war. with the warships.
I really like that.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool.
I thought it was very well choreographed as well, like the flight part with
Yes.
Sam and Joaquin.
Exactly. And what Sam is doing is trying to take out these American fighter pilots who are trying to destroy this Japanese ship. The two of them, obviously, it was all planned by the leader that these two countries would be going at each other for this adamantium.
Yeah.
It's all a misunderstanding, but I thought it was a very good scene. I liked how Sam uses his wings as a shield, to protect themselves. And
because now he has like 3 shields.
Exactly right. Yeah. So I thought the way he moved in the suit was very good.
I actually do want to talk about that though.
Go ahead.
I don't know. I get that Sam doesn't have the super soldier serum, but he has a lot of tech. Yeah. First of all, you know what really irks me? The fact that underneath his nanotech helmet that literally goes nowhere, he has on goggles. He's wearing goggles under his helmet, which has goggles on it.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
He's wearing goggles under his helmet.
And also, with Tony Stark, when he had the nanotech suit, you could see that it was coming out of the arc reactor in his chest. I have no idea where his helmet went or why he needed it. I think the reason they keep going with nanotech is because they keep trying to decide what the suit looks like in post instead of before filming. So instead of having a practical helmet, they have to make a CGI one.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Yeah, just kind of, yeah.
Okay. All right. And then the other part of the film I thought was very good was the Red Hulk. Did you like that scene?
I did like it.
Yeah.
Before Sam talked him down.
Yes, exactly.
I do want to talk about that when we get to the falling short part.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And Harrison Ford, for someone, I don't expect that, he's a person that read comic books, but he understood the character very well. And there were times when he was on the warship and he's talking to the leader, in his headphones or whatever. Yeah. And the leader is trying to get him angry. Yeah. And you can see that, Ross is, trying to control it and hold it in. And Harrison Ford is just, he's
really selling it.
Yes, he is. And he's like grabbing his throat and he's trying to
pull his shirt off.
And, he's holding his head and he's
gripping that pipe and like crushing it.
All of his strength to not turn into this Red Hulk. But, of course, in the last half hour of the movie, it does happen. I thought the Hulk looked pretty good. Yeah.
All right. Is that the last part you got?
Yeah. All right. So now let's talk about why this movie fell short.
Yes. While we're on the topic of the Hulk. Yeah. I think one of the things that kind of not ruined the movie, but took away points for me is that I went in expecting to see the Red Hulk. I think the problem is that they thought that the Red Hulk would be a big draw to the film, but they milked it so much in the trailers that I thought Red Hulk would be a bigger part of it. Because you notice you get like one shot of the leader in all the trailers, whereas Red Hulk gets multiple shots in all of them. And because he's not that big a part of the story, if they replaced his shots in the trailer with the leader and took out that one scene where he's like crashing, edited that one scene where he's crashing out on the plane so he doesn't turn red, so people think it's a red herring and they don't expect it, where he's just angry. Because I remember there was one part where his hand started like literally turning red. If they just removed that, I think that would have been better. And then Red Hulk showing up in the last part of the film would have been a surprise, and it would have had people lit in the theaters. I think more people would have gone to see it at that point.
Well, let me ask you this question. Do you think the Red Hulk appearing in the trailers was a good idea?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't really think so.
Okay, so that's what you're saying, that they should have been left until the movie.
Yeah.
Like they gave it away. So I'm wondering, why did they put him in a trailer in the first place?
Probably to draw people to the theaters. Because I think what happened was Falcon and the Winter Soldier didn't get that many views. So they thought if they used an established character that people really want to see, like Red Hulk, it would draw people in to watch the movie. But, he wasn't really in it that much. He got like that 1 5-minute rampage.
Yeah.
Ugh, that was a nasty voice crack. 5-minute rampage, and that was it.
Right. Through the cherry blossoms.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else that you want to?
Not about this.
Not about this.
I also want to talk about the leader.
Yeah.
I think his plan is a bit harebrained, kind of Looney Tunes-ish. Or sorry, not harebrained, broccoli-brained.
Well, the brain outside of the head.
Yeah. The fun part about the leader? I can make fun of his physical appearance because he looks nothing like Tim Blake Nelson.
Right.
He's green and he has like broccoli sprout on his head.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, fun fact, I think at some point during the movie they were gonna have him look like he did in the comics, which is just with that enlarged cranium
Yeah.
and hair. That they thought it looked too comic booky and like campy, so they made him look more gruesome. Which honestly, I prefer the elongated forehead over like. It looks like he was getting sculpted out of clay, and then he sneezed and just like stayed that way.
So I've seen him in the comic books. You know what he reminds me of? There's this villain in the DC comics called Sinestro. You ever
Oh
heard of-
yeah, Sinestro.
I think the two of them look very similar.
He's like Sinestro but green
Yeah, right.
and without the elf ears.
Right. So I think that was a problem for me to have him look like he does in the comics because to me he just looks like another villain from another comic book.
Yeah, but we haven't seen Sinestro in like 15 years.
No, that's true.
And
That's
when
true.
we did see him, he wasn't wearing yellow.
Yeah.
And nobody liked the movie.
Right. All right. Let's talk about this character.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. This was one of the worst villains
I
that I've
agree.
seen in Marvel.
Yeah.
And this was terrible. I didn't like anything about this portrayal. Tim Blake Nelson is actually a very good actor.
Exactly.
He was in The Watchmen, and he was fantastic in The Watchmen. You didn't see it.
I've heard it's good.
The HBO series is fantastic. He's a very good actor. In this movie, he was terrible.
I don't think they gave him much to
Right.
do.
Yeah, and I think a majority of that is the script.
Mm.
And he might have had more scenes in the movie, and maybe they were cut. I don't know.
Maybe
but-
the movie got butchered on the editing room floor.
And his makeup was just horrible. I am sorry. I don't know how else to say it. I just didn't like it.
Well, was it horrible in the sense that it looks awful, or horrible in the sense that it looks awful like it wasn't good?
It looks awful because the makeup was not good.
I see.
Yes, right. I don't know what they were going for, but you did mention that, I guess he could have had the big head,
Weird bubbles.
the receding hairline. They could have done something else. I didn't get the brain coming out. To me, it looks like the brain was forming outside of the skull.
Yeah, and it was inconsistent too,
Yeah.
because on one side it was like bubbles,
Yeah.
and on the other side it was like actual like grooves in the brain.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
Because the fact that the leader is getting smarter shouldn't make his brain bust out of his skull, and if it did, that should kill him. It should just like make his head bigger, I guess, or maybe his brain's just the same size and it just contains more knowledge.
Yeah.
Also, I think it was very petty. Like, I don't have a problem with petty village. Aldrich Killian wanted to scrap with Iron Man just because Iron Man didn't want to talk to him like 20 years before the movie. But I don't get it. It's like, you locked me in your basement. And that's how he sounds. You locked me in your basement for 10 years, and now I'm gonna ruin your reputation and make your daughter hate you. Ah ha ha.
Don't be boring. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
He didn't do it for me.
Mm.
All right. So let's talk about the dialogue.
Wait, I have one more point to make about the
Oh,
leader.
go ahead, please. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
One
No problem. I feel like there could have been a better plan for the leader. Like, for example, what if instead of trying to destroy his reputation, the leader was more calculated, right? He went for each aspect of his life. For example, instead of his relationship with his daughter being bad already, maybe he could have caused that, off screen or in screen. And then he goes for his political standings, has him make some forced unpopular decisions that cause the people to hate him. He has a falling out with Sam and his government officials, just literally drive the man insane.
Right.
Instead of just, putting him to war. I don't know why you couldn't have accounted for Sam and Joaquin, because they were already well known at the time. And also, you could have just locked the doors in that basement and left them there. It wasn't hard for Joaquin to open the door because he just reached his hand through the bars and clicked it, which is really embarrassing as a security feature because it means anyone could just leave at any time. But also the leader could have just locked them in there.
Yeah, it did nothing for me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Every scene he was in, I didn't care. I lost interest. And it didn't get any better. And we're going to talk more about the leader, unfortunately.
And Ross. Real quick, just a point about Ross.
Mm-hmm.
He probably should have just taken the headphones off when the leader was talking to him. It's like when I'm
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
It's like when I'm losing in a video game multiple times, sometimes I just gotta go drink some water or something, because I'm not gonna let a video game get me actually upset, which is exactly what Ross should have done. And also, instead of trying to hold back the president, maybe they should have just turned off the speaker system. Like, instead of having the leader pump this nonsense and propaganda into this crowd of journalists' ears and getting the president really upset, could have just, like, click, turned them off.
Right. And you're talking about that scene when he's on the White House lawn.
Yeah, when
and
he's
giving
about
that
to crash
speech.
out toward the
Right.
Red Hulk.
Exactly. So that's one of my questions. Like, where did this speech come from? Someone must have
Yeah.
put in, it was timed exactly when it needed to happen. Like, where did this speech come from? When did he record it? And how did it get through the speakers?
Yeah, exactly, because the
Yeah,
leader
we
was
don't know.
already in custody by then.
Exactly.
Maybe
Right.
what they should have done is, instead of him just show up, say 5 words to Sam, get arrested, which was really, really stupid. I feel like for a guy who's supposed to calculate everything, he should have came up with a better plan. Maybe they have him show up to the White House. You know that one scene where he's got the hat on to cover
Yes.
his head?
Right.
They could have used that here. He shows up all mysterious,
Right.
takes the hat off, and he's like, Ross, don't you remember me?
Yeah.
You locked me in your basement.
Right.
And then he shows off
And
the
gives that
gamma
speech.
pills that he's been
Yes.
given to the Hulk.
Exactly.
And Ross is like, that's not true. And then he starts hulking out. And then the leader could have got arrested.
That
And
made more
the whole
sense.
Red Hulk scene could have played out.
Exactly. Right. I think that made a lot more sense
Yeah.
than the way it happened.
And instead of Sam talking down the Red Hulk, they should have had a more emotional payoff, because we know Betty's his daughter and they've had a strange relationship. And he mentioned the cherry blossoms where they used to take walks. So what if Sam managed to call Betty and she shows up and talks her dad down? And, they get that emotional reconciliation instead of her just showing up at the end of the movie. I'm not even sure those were shot in the same place, because her shot is from in front of the bars and President Ford's is behind them. So
Yeah, it was hard for me to tell whether she was actually there in the same room, or she just recorded her lines and then they just did some, superimposed.
ADR.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Yep, that's it. I think I'm done.
Yeah.
With Ross.
You hit great points, and I agree with you.
Thank
I
you.
want to talk about the screenwriting. So
Mm.
I know this movie had some problems. There's five writers, all right, who are given screenplay credit.
Yeah.
And I know this movie was being made when there was a writer's strike, so I know that was an issue that they didn't have a writer. Maybe the first draft, or whatever the draft they used for the first for the filming of the movie, probably didn't go well. And I also heard rumors that there was not even a script.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember back in
that?
2024
Yeah.
when we were hearing that they were shooting without a script, and
Yeah.
Anthony Mackie was justifiably upset.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Because shooting without a script is like trying to cook a 5-course meal while blindfolded.
right. How in the world do you perform without a script? I don't know. Like, do
Exactly.
they have these actors just come up with the lines themselves right there?
Yeah.
It didn't make any sense.
And how would that be useful?
It's not.
Exactly.
So what we have now is a screenwriter's mess, right?
Mm.
It's very novice. I don't know if it was intentional, but they spent a lot of time trying to catch people up on things
Yeah.
that they should already know.
I agree with that.
It's like they were spoon feeding us this dialogue. Like they for some reason they had the need to explain themselves every time someone was talking to catch us up on or previous movie, or you talked about the scene when at the beginning when Ross was asking for his daughter, like he's talking to the agent.
Like,
Says, "Have you
any
seen my
word
daughter?
from Betty, my
Betty?
daughter?
My daughter?" He's like, "Okay, well we know Betty is."
Yeah,
We
and
know-
so should they.
have to tell us
Because, like, diegetically,
exactly.
they should know that Betty is his daughter.
Yeah.
So he should have either said, have you heard any word from Betty, or have you heard any word from my daughter?
Yeah, right. I mean, yes, there's a lot of unnecessary. Who do they think the audience is? I mean, the audience are Marvel fans, right? Who have seen previous movies. We may not have seen
Exactly.
all of them, but we've seen another Marvel film,
Yeah.
for, one or two. So there was no need for you to just tell us who everybody is.
Yeah,
And there was
people-
another. Go ahead.
People who are watching Brave New World are likely the same people who watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Absolutely.
Or, like, I think the problem is Marvel is too busy trying to play catch up with their other audiences when it should just be their loss and move on. The story should progress as if you've seen the other projects, because the chances are that you have, and if you haven't, that's your loss. It's kind of required watching for you. So I don't know if that's a good stance to take. It shouldn't be entirely required, but it should at least give you enough context that you get it without having to spoon feed it to you
Yes.
or leave you in the dark.
Right. I have seen movies like a sequel who, would give you at the beginning, like I'm thinking about Mad Max and the Road Warrior. I'm not going to go too much into these films, but the Road Warrior did a very good job in the first 5 minutes, or maybe the first 2 minutes of the movie, to catch people up on what happened in the first movie, because the first movie was not as popular as the second movie. So what they did was just give us a little synopsis of what took place in the first movie, and we were like, oh, cool. Now I know where we are. And then
Yeah.
they just moved forward. They just kept going. But in this movie, they just kept stopping and just telling us, oh, so and so this. Oh, by the way, this person is so and so that. So here's another example. So Joaquin and Sam, like they're in this room, and Joaquin says, yo, get this. Ross's advisor, Ruth Bat-Seraph, she was born in Israel and trained in the Red Room. She's ex-widow. And then Sam says, that basically means stay out of the way.
We know what being an ex-widow is. Anybody who's watching Brave New World has seen the Avengers and all the other subsequent films and the Winter Soldier, which have Black Widow in it.
It made no sense to me. Like, or who are you talking to?
Yeah, like we know the
Yes.
things that widows are capable of in their training.
Exactly. This was I didn't get it, but they did this throughout the movie. There was another scene where, let me get this one in.
Yeah.
So Bat-Seraph, this is towards the end of the movie. This is when Bucky appears. Remember, he makes his cameo appearance. Yes. So Bucky, and the two of them, Bucky and Sam,
they chop it up.
Yeah, they have a conversation. Bucky leaves the room. Bat-Seraph comes in, and she says, "Was that Bucky Barnes?" Yes, we know who Bucky.
No, that was Sebastian Stan.
Go ahead, Keith.
Yeah. And there was this one scene at the beginning of the movie where Sam used his wings as one of those cool tech things. You know, a Black Panther suit absorbs kinetic energy and expels it as such. So Sam did that, and one of the fellow officers that Joaquin was with was like, "How do you do that?" And Joaquin was like, "Yeah, it's this tech he got from the Wakandans. They gave him this epic new suit." And I was like, "We know that because." I think that was episode 5 when he got that suit.
Yes, if you saw the Falcon and Winter Soldier, you know exactly where he got the suit from.
Yeah.
But,
there was probably a more diegetic way to have him remember that. How Sam's been working with just what he has for years, that being the Falcon suit. So imagine if he's fighting, right? And he's getting overpowered. And then Joaquin's like, hey, use your special ability, remember? And then he does. He's like, oh, thanks, because it shows that Sam's still getting used to the new suit and all the different accoutrements.
Correct.
And it still shows all the different things he can do with it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's such a good writer.
Yeah, right. I mean, I look, again, I know they been through a lot with the strike and whatever. I don't know what happened, but this is the result we got.
I feel like this movie was supposed to come out after Eternals.
Yeah, this was
a while
ago. This movie had 3 dates. And I think the first one was supposed to be, and you can look it up, I think it was supposed to be in 24.
Yeah.
2020, early 2024, summer. Mm-hmm. And then they moved it to the fall, and now it's 2025. So while you're doing that, one more thing about this screenplay. And this to me was just the ultimate, it drove me nuts. These news breaks.
Oh, yeah.
So what I mean by that is, every once in a while you'll see a news break and you see these 2 journalists on the screen and they're giving you the headlines of what's going on, to tell the story. It's fine if you're going to have news breaks. If you use it sporadically, like in The Fugitive, for an example, they use the journalists, the portrayal of the media and the journalists, the news breaks very well. In this movie, it's like every 10 minutes, there's a news break.
Yeah.
And the news break is not telling us anything new. It's telling us something that we've already seen.
Recast.
So it doesn't make any sense.
The one at the beginning of the film was kind of cool. When Ross was crashing out on the stage, but he had the mustache.
Yes, that was nice.
That was funny.
Right.
But then they were his daughter, Betty Ross, is estranged, which we already knew from the last scene, which we already knew from The Incredible Hulk.
Correct.
And I remember there's a bunch of newscasts throughout the film that just tell us things that have already happened instead of using that time to divulge new information.
Yeah, and here's another one. So we were just talking about the war, the brink of war with Japan and U.S., and we're seeing the war, the brink of war taking place, and we got Sam and Joaquin trying to to destroy these not destroy them, but to stop the fighter pilots from firing at this Japan vessel. We're seeing it all play out, and the whole thing ends, and then news break. A crisis narrowly avoided when a brief dogfight broke out between Japanese and U.S. military forces. We just saw that. Why are you telling us this already?
That's like if I go watch a basketball game, right? And then as I leave the stadium, there's a guy out there giving the score of the game.
Joaquin Torres is injured, and he's in a hospital in critical condition. We saw it happen. You don't need to tell us.
You know what's even funnier about that part?
Yeah.
They said the exact name of the hospital he was at. He said so and so Memorial.
Yeah.
Army Hospital. Military hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I don't know why he would divulge that information.
Exactly.
Like, he already almost died. Why would you think somebody would want to sneak in there? Like, what if there was a random street criminal who was feeling shiesty that day, just walked in and just blah,
Yeah. It's I'm almost done. Just real quick, I did not like the score. I thought the triumphant music was played in the wrong places when it wasn't anything triumphant. Like there was one scene where at the beginning when Captain America's in the church, and he makes that drop, that Marvel drop to the floor.
Oh yeah, wait.
Bop, bop, okay, yeah. All he did was just drop to the floor. Like, why do we need this triumphant music anyway? So I didn't like the music.
Yeah.
Let's see, Sidewinder, Giancarlo Esposito. I think he was just thrown in there at the last minute.
Giancarlo Esposito, what a guy.
Yeah, I don't think he really brought anything. I don't think he necessarily needed to be in this movie, but he was.
I hope he got a fat check for this because he barely did anything.
Yeah.
I kid you not. There's like 3 scenes of him in this movie. There's the one at the church, there's the one where he almost kills Sam, and then there's the one at the military base, and that's it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then, I still don't understand. Please explain to me why Thaddeus Ross is getting medical advice from a criminal.
Exactly.
So
this guy's incarcerated.
Yeah. So basically, Ross is sick. Maybe he
was having heart failure.
Yes. So he couldn't find a doctor who could cure him or whatever he has. But he was able to find, Mr. Stearns, what's his name? Samuel Stearns, right? Who plays?
Oh, Tim Blake Nelson is the guy who plays Samuel Stearns.
Yeah. But what's the name of the villain?
The leader.
The leader, right?
He doesn't lead anybody.
Right. So I'm gonna go to this criminal and try to get him to make me some pills to make me feel better.
Yeah.
The pills are filled with gamma radiation, which is the reason why.
I find it interesting that he didn't at least have somebody like off the books verify that the pills are safe.
Yes.
And also, I know Ross wasn't exactly a good favor, but one call to Tony Stark or T'Challa could have solved this problem because they're like, or Shuri even, they're like the smartest people in the world at this point, or Hank Pym or Scott Lang. They probably could have designed him some sort of pill because I know they don't like Ross, but I don't think they would let the man die.
Yeah.
He could have absolutely trusted them because they're literally heroes. They've proved time and time again.
I get it. You're the president of the United States. You have the best healthcare in the world. Okay, so please don't tell me that you have to rely on a criminal to get your pills. All right, and one last thing is just ridiculous. So Bat-Seraph. So now that we know that Isaiah Bradley, at the end of the movie, of course, he was freed. So anyway, he invites Bat-Seraph to a ball game, and she accepts. Okay, that's weird because this is the man who was accused of attempting to murder your boss.
Yeah, I get that it wasn't his fault, right? But I didn't know you guys were like buddy now.
Well, I'm gonna hang out with the guy who tried to kill my boss. Anyway.
Isn't it kind of funny?
Yes.
Because I'm pretty sure those news reports show that this dude almost assassinated the president. I'm surprised he went out in public and came back unharmed. But.
And the last thing, the post-credit scene, one of the worst, once again, didn't tell us anything that we didn't already know.
There was a post-credit scene?
Again, the leader tells us, you think you're the only superheroes in the world, like there's blah, 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 blah. In other words,
the only superheroes in the world.
In the multiverse, so this scene told us nothing.
I do a really good leader impression.
Yeah, you do.
Yes.
I think you've been a better leader than the leader.
You know what's funny? He has the same voice as my guy from Madam Web. The spider. Your mother was researching the spiders in the Amazon and she died.
Yeah. So, yeah. Look, I like movies to be good. All right. So, and I'm not saying this movie was bad. Once again, it was middle. All right.
Yes, I
Look,
like movies to be good and
yeah.
my food to be edible.
Yes, I like to go to the movies to enjoy them. So unfortunately,
Exactly.
okay, this movie had its
Yeah.
faults.
Brave New
Okay.
World was not refund worthy. I think it was. I enjoyed my time though.
Yeah, I think Anthony Mackie deserved a better movie.
Yeah.
So that's what I think. All right. So how does this prepare us for Secret Wars outside of introducing
Oh
Sam as
no,
Captain
man.
America and Ross giving him permission to form the Avengers? That's
Which got
pretty much
taken
it.
off the table.
Well, yes and no. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
he did.
Ross was like, that deal expired the minute your friend tried to kill me.
Yeah,
And
true.
then he kind of got, thrown in jail indefinitely.
You know something? Let me say this. If you're going to have a movie featuring the president of the United States, you need to have a VP. All right. And the reason why I say that is, okay, this president is in jail. Who's running the country? Like even if you just have a VP just there, giving one or two lines just to acknowledge him as the vice president of the United States, great. Because I find it Marvel. I don't know. Like I'm thinking about Secret Invasion, where this president is in the hospital or is sick or is in jail. Like I'm wondering, like, okay, well, who's running the country? That's just me. Anyway.
All right, I think I've yapped
But
enough about this film.
yeah, again, really, if you want to me, a better introduction of Sam as Captain America is Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So I
Yes.
recommend you see that over this movie if you had to choose. All right.
Just
Yes.
go in and remember, John Walker did nothing wrong.
John Walker. Look, I don't know if you're just being sarcastic about that.
I'm being
really think
slightly
he's done nothing
sarcastic.
wrong?
I don't know about nothing.
Yeah, well, that's actually one of the reasons to watch Falcon and Winter Soldier is because of John Walker.
My
I
goat.
wanted to know. Yeah, he's warming up to me. I'm kind of liking John Walker now. We talked about it during the Thunderbolts review. So
maybe if everybody in the MCU would stop stepping on him for like 5 seconds.
yeah, well, he puts himself out there to be stepped on. Okay, and get his shield turned into a taco.
Oh yeah. I don't know why he's just rocked with the taco shield, because you can't really shield yourself from anything if you're either shielding like this, or like I don't know how to demonstrate a curve, but like
So that is it. Do you have anything else we want to say about Captain America: Brave New World?
It was brave, it was new, and it was in a world, and it certainly starred Captain America.
We are still excited for the Avengers, and our next movie is Fantastic Four. So
Sam Wilson's kind of I don't know what he was doing. I think it was kind of a bad move to sue the Thunderbolts, because he wasn't using the Avengers name, and then when somebody else decided to be the Avengers, all of a sudden he had an objection.
Yeah, there's still no explanation for why he would sue.
Also, he's gonna lose. Like, he doesn't own the Avengers as a trademark.
Absolutely.
And he hasn't officially been on the roster since it shut down in 2023.
Correct. Yeah. I guess that's what it comes down to. Who owns the rights to the Avengers name?
I don't think anybody owns the rights.
Well, somebody has to. No?
Not really. Because there hasn't been an Avengers team in universe since 2023. It's about 2027.
Okay, well, when the Avengers were formed back in the day during Infinity War and Endgame, who owned the rights? Was it Tony?
Probably Tony. He is the richest out of all of them, so it makes sense that he owns the rights to the Avengers. But Tony since deceased. Right. So do the rights pass on to Pepper, or do you give them to Rhodey, or do they just cease to exist?
Yeah. Or maybe Nick Fury. I don't know. Because he was the one.
I'm pretty sure Fury's off on a honeymoon with his Skrull wife.
Oh, yeah, right.
I don't know what this guy's doing.
We're going down the road. Anyway, so we're looking forward to Ironheart, which is going to be dropping on Disney Plus in a couple of weeks.
Remember when Nick Fury was powerful?
And then we have Fantastic Four in July. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. That was our spoiler review of Captain America: Brave New World.
I want to be clear. I don't hate the film or anybody who worked on it. I just think it had some teeny tiny flaws.
Yes. And by the way, this movie, flaws and all, made $415 million worldwide. That's not bad. That's pretty good. All right. So thank you once again for joining us on this podcast episode. Keith, where can people find us? Oh, thank you very much. You had 2 more minutes.
I'm trying, man.
Okay. All right,
You
go
can
ahead.
find us wherever you get your podcast. Socials are Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Fathers of the Galaxy. Website, fathersofgalaxy.com. Please check out our merch store, fathersofgalaxy.myspreadshop.com, and our Patreon page, patreon.com/fathersofgalaxy.
All right. Thank you once again, everyone. Hey,
Donate to my Patreon. I need money.
yes, there is. Yeah, we're working on the Patreon. We'll talk more about it later. But yeah, we know what we we need to focus more on our Patreon. So thank you so much, and we need to get patrons. All right.
They're really
so
fun.
there's still a lot more Marvel for the rest of the year. We're only in June.
Yeah, we got Ironheart, we got
Yes.
Fantastic Four, we got Eyes of Wakanda, we got Marvel
We
Zombies.
got a lot.
I'm actually kind of excited for Marvel Zombies.
Yeah.
I heard Miss Marvel and Shang-Chi are in it, so
Really?
I'm there for that. I'm there for them
Okay. I'll watch it.
as long as they don't die.
Well, the zombies aren't they already dead?
No, they're not zombies. They're the anti-zombies.
Okay. Anyway.
You know, how, like every zombie show has the survivors
Yeah.
who are
True.
like fighting the outbreak. That's them.
Okay. We'll see.
You know, Cap's still kicking.
We gotta go, Keith.
Zombie Cap,
We're going.
legless, armless zombie
We gotta
Cap,
go. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this episode. Until next time, take care.
and we will see you again.